good morning, and how are you today? How was your weekend? I hope you had a very good one. Today we'll be studying math, and we're still on lesson 11. We've been having lesson 11 now for like 2 weeks, but now we're going to unit 7. It's a new topic, very interesting one. So get all your books. Today we'll be looking at our student book, page 232 to 235. So let's go ahead. Today we're looking at measures. We'll be looking at measures. Yeah, remember that we've been looking at measures and we've looked at the units of length. We've been looking at length, how to measure with our ruler, the different units of length, and so on. But today, let's see the next topic that we're looking at under measures. Mass. Today, we'll be studying mass. And look at the picture that I have here. It says heavy or light. So what do you think mass is measuring? Let's see if we're going to be able to understand more as the lesson goes on. A quick warm-up activity before we start the lesson. I have two questions here. For 2 weeks, we were studying length. So let me ask you this question. Get your paper and write the answer, or you get your math book and write the answer. How many units of length do we have? How many units of length do we have? You did all your workbooks on length and you got everything correctly. So now you should know how many units of length that we have. So 5 seconds, can you write that? How many units of length? Okay, good. The second question, mention the units of length. What are the units of length? So mention them. Do you remember them? Okay, so quickly write them down. And let's see, I'll tell you the answers, but let's see if you got it correctly first, okay? Don't just sit and listen. You have to pick up a paper or your book and write down the answer, okay? That's how to learn. Write down the answer. So let me give you another 7 seconds to write that. All finished? Okay, good job. Now let us see your answers. First question, how many units of length? We have 4 units of length. Remember, I said to you that there are 4 ways that you can measure length. And what are these units? Do you remember them? Let us see if you got the answer correct. Millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. Remember, I always say MCMK. Remember that? Units of length, millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. So did you get the answers correctly? Great job. Thumbs up if you got the answers correctly. But if you did not, try to memorize this now and don't forget again. We have 4 units of length, and the units of length are MCMK, millimeters, centimeters, meters, and kilometers. Okay, let's go to today's lesson. What's our lesson objective for today? Now, at the end of this lesson, we must be able to understand mass as the unit for measuring weight. Remember, we are talking about mass, and it is a unit that we use to measure weight. At the end of this lesson also, we must be able to identify the units for measuring mass. We just did a warm-up activity and we looked at the units for measuring length, MCMK. Now, for mass, which units do we use to measure? And finally, we must be able to choose the most suitable unit for measuring objects. You remember we did that when we did lengths, when we were looking at different objects, and I say to you, write the suitable units. For a book, you measure in centimeter. For a car, you measure in meters. and so on. You remember that? We're going to do the same thing for mass. So let's go ahead to the next one. Measures. Now, look at this. Remember that we used our ruler when we did length. We used our ruler a lot. We measured a lot of things. Okay, so we're looking at three things under measures. We will still get to these other topics. We have studied length already, so that is done. We have not done capacity. We can also call capacity volume. You can also say volume. We have not studied that yet. But today, what are we studying? Mass. Yes, the one that measures weight is called mass. The one that measures weight is called mass. So I can say, what is the weight of this object? Or I can also say, what is the mass of this object? So when you're measuring weight, it means you're measuring the mass of an object. Let's go ahead. Now, do you know these objects? I'll show you the objects. But do you know the objects? There's someone standing on something here. Do you remember this object? Yes, it's a scale. A lot of you will have it in your bathrooms and you use it. What do you use the scale to check? You use it to check if the body is too heavy or too light. You use it to check if the body is heavy or light. So what does that mean? We use it to check the mass of the body. That's the weight of the body. What about this one? Remember this? When you go to some food stores, you want to buy mutton, you want to buy sometimes maybe chicken or fish, you see this kind of scale. It's a measuring scale and it is used to know if our food is too heavy or too light. We find them also in the malls where you go to pick up your grocery. If you pick up fruits, you know somebody is always at a particular counter. You take the fruits to the person. After you put it in the plastic bag, the person puts a sticker on it because the person has measured the weight. He puts it on a scale, measures the weight, and then gives it back to you before you take it to the counter to pay. Okay, now so this is a measuring scale to know if our food is too heavy or too light. You use it to know the mass or the weight of your food. Let's see another one. This one is a balance wheel. How does a balance wheel work? It will let you know the lighter side and the heavier side. Okay, so the balance wheel helps you to know which object is heavy or light. Now look at all these objects. What are they measuring? They are measuring mass. They try to measure if something is light or heavy, and it will tell us the measurements. Just like when you read with your ruler tells you this is 2 centimeter, this is 5 centimeter. For the mass, it will also tell us this is 5 something, but not centimeter, not meter, not millimeter, and not kilometer. It will measure in, guess what? I will soon tell you in the next slide, the units of mass. Look, which type of measurements can we use to check if something is heavy or light? That's what I asked earlier. How will you know if something is heavy or light? The kind of measurements we use is mass. The kind of measurements we use to know if something is long or short is length. But the one you use to know if something is heavy or light is mass. So now what are the units for measuring mass? We know the units of length already, millimeters, centimeters, and so on. If you measure a book, you can easily say to me the book is 5 centimeters in length. But now, if you measure mass, how would you say the answer? Would you say it is heavy and the mass is 4 meters? or 4 centimeters? No way, because we are measuring mass in it is going to be measured in grams and kilograms. So for mass, we will be focusing on grams and kilograms. Remember in length, we said millimeters measures tiny objects, centimeters measures bigger ones, meters measures large objects, and kilometers is for measuring distance. Here in mass, we only have two, grams and kilograms. Grams is for light objects and kilograms for heavy objects. Now let us see, grams or kilograms. How can we measure these objects that we see here? Would we measure in grams or in kilograms? I have a watermelon here. When you buy a watermelon in the grocery store, is it very light or very heavy? This is what we'll be doing with these pictures. For the heavy ones, they are measured in kilograms, but the light ones are measured in grams. Light ones in grams, heavy ones in kilograms. Light ones in grams, heavy ones in kilograms. So let us see, is the watermelon heavy or light? Great job, it's heavy. So how do we measure watermelon? Great, in kilograms because it is heavy. What about this box I have here? This box is just a very light box because it is empty. Is the box empty? Is the box going to be heavy or light? Light. So how do we measure? Great job, in grams because it is light. Look at this piece of rock I have here. The piece of rock is a little bit big. And how are we going to measure this one? If you put it on the measuring scale, will it be heavy or will it be light? It will be quite heavy. So if it will be heavy, how do we measure it? In kilograms. That's the units we use, in kilograms. Let's look at these yummy fruits we have here. We have the strawberries, just two of them, very little, just two. If you put the strawberry on a measuring scale, do you think it will be very heavy or light? Good job, it will be light. So how do we measure light objects? In grams. Finally, I have Pringles here. When you go to the store or if you have Pringles around you, you can pick it up and see if it is heavy or light. But I am sure and I know that Pringles is very light. So, do we measure these Pringles in grams or kilograms? Good, in grams because it is very light. Now, students, you've been able to understand that we use grams and kilograms to measure mass. And now you also know kilograms measures heavy things and grams measures light objects. Now, what did we learn today? Let's see. Today we have learned that mass is the unit for measuring weight. To see if an object is heavy or light, we use mass. Now we've also been able to learn that the units of mass are grams and kilograms. And we now know how to choose the best unit of mass to measure different objects. That means we now know if an object can be measured in grams or in kilograms. Now this brings us to the end of today's lesson. It was really an interesting one. I had fun and I hope you did too. Today we'll only do an assignment from our student book, page 235. Check the items or the objects and see if it will be measured in grams or kilograms. So till we have another lesson tomorrow, students, take care of yourselves, be safe and have a great day. Bye. We've refreshed our knowledge about finding area by counting squares. If you have any questions, please do ask on Class Dojo, and please make sure that you complete your workbook and the exercises we have in the student book. So till we have a lesson again next week, take care of yourselves, students, and have a great time. Bye.